welcome to No Question About That Daily. I'm Ed today with Adam, and we're focusing on Arsenal versus United in the FA Cup. How's it going, Adam? Happy New Year.
Good. Happy New Year. Ready for the clash with Stoke. So let's have it.
Stoke 2, set piece FC. Yeah, it's extraordinary. Mikel Arteta got really hot under the collar. I mean, it doesn't take much with him. He's a very highly strung person. One about the ball using the EFL Cup, and then one about Newcastle pushing. Someone put a comp out, which is brilliant. All the off-the-ball fouls Arsenal were doing during the game. It was just all the time, right? And then you look back a few days before to the Brighton game, and all the dark arts at any kind of set piece, not just the corners, like pushing players on side, pulling, blocking, like every little thing they can do to gain any kind of advantage.
Well, reap what you sow, right? So I agree that the Isaac goal was probably a foul in the build-up, but it's a very interesting line to take when you sort of built your own play style on dark arts, which is fine. Like, football is about gamesmanship and things like that. No one's going to argue that. It's just, and also Penny for his thoughts on the ball that we're using the FA Cup, that they've used the special Mida edition. We're going to use as cup holders. So, would love to hear his thoughts on that. I
hope one wobbles in and goes past and like squirms through Raya or something like that. Anything to wind.
What was the ball that they had for the World Cup that caused controversy? With the Jabulani?
The Jabulani.
Yeah, I hope it bends like a Jabulani and we get something controversial.
Well, that one was great because all the free kick takers, they were getting them to move all over the place. So, I mean, we haven't had a ball that's done that since, really. They've all been rounder than the last one.
Remember those Nike balls? Those Nike balls with the line on either side? Yeah, that used to fly about. It just reminds me of like proper Sir Alex era.
Nice. Well, this one's golden. Very nice. Like it. There'll be 8,000 United fans going, 1,000 fewer than there should have been. Arsenal were dicks about the ticket allocation for no particular reason. There's always a kind of random, it's safety concern. There's
going to be empty seats, right? Because they're not even using them. Yeah.
Not using them. It's never any trouble at the Emirates. Like, they're all too busy tucking into their champagne and prawn sandwiches, obviously. It's a
quiet environment.
Exactly. You politely clap like you're going to the theatre or the opera or something like that. And then you watch the thugs on the pitch. Amazing. Arteta, for a guy who studied under Pep Guardiola, and you're thinking, okay, he's going to enact the beautiful game or something like that. Absolutely nothing like it at all. They most defensive side in the Premier League, or best defence in the Premier League, I should say. They very much concentrate on that. They've got 4 big guns at the back whose job it is to like defend, like and not attack.
And they do it really well. Let's not get it twisted. But I think we have this negative connotation around defensive football, but they because it's not what we go to watch. We go to watch what happens in the penalty area. But yeah, they just defend. It's like the 4 centre-back setup that they've really this modern approach where you just have these big bustling centre-backs right across the back 4. And they do it really well, Best defence in the Premier League, second in XG conceded. They are really hard to break down.
Very much. Yeah, with the 2 sitting in front, whether it's Rice and Partey or just Rice or another in there. They close down the passing lanes. They're the block or the high press is very, very effective. They're not quite as aggressive as, say, a Tottenham or a Liverpool or a City with a high press, but they're very, very hard to get through the middle third into the opposition's attacking zones. And so they do it very effectively. It's not just about like last man, last ditch defense. So it's not quite George Graham-esque Arsenal, not far off though. And then they have this incredibly effective set piece regime. And I was just looking at the numbers, and like an incredible number of both Saka, who's obviously out, and Rice from free kicks or corners, incredible amount of chance creation from those. And Saka's the big loss, obviously. 106 shot creating actions this season across all competitions, 25 goal creating actions. So goal creating actions and assists don't quite match up because you can have a shot blocked or you beat a man and it rolls to someone else and so on, whatever. But like incredibly potent from free kicks is Saka and from open play, and they're going to really, really miss him an awful lot. But yeah, massive amount of chances created from set piece routines, as we know, right? And we're going to have to do something about it this time.
Well, hopefully. It seems like we've learned our lesson. We have defended better in the last few games from set pieces. The thing with Arsenal, they're such an efficient side with Saka in. They're third in final third turnovers created. So they want to create high up the pitch turnover and create goal creating actions from that while defending really tight at the back and creating set pieces. Now they're a different side without Saka, both in set pieces and in attack. Like they've got such a heavy reliance on him. They didn't sign a forward in the summer, which has been a bit of a story this week, saying that they didn't have the money to do a deal. So it's just not the same side. And I actually really like that they play Rice as an 8 because his best position is a 6. But they've tried to make him more of the box-to-box sort of player. And not to say he's good at it, but I just think he's one of the world's best 6s. And they're trying to shoehorn someone like Partey in the team. And
they can.
Yeah, go ahead.
No more comment on that one, but
go ahead. Yeah, until his contract runs out in the summer, and Arsenal fans are like, "Oh, why haven't they re-signed him?" It's like, I wonder what the stories were on the media this week. Anyway,
I do wonder. I have no comment whatsoever on that one, but that one will play itself out. Yeah, no, you're right. It's interesting that the Partey at Atletico was not just a pure 6. He was more of an 8 or sort of box to box. They seem to have done that. I don't know whether that's his age or whether it's Rice's sort of dynamism they're looking for there. I mean, obviously, Rice, again, is really effective on the set pieces as well. Eddie Howe accused them this week, not the first manager to do this, of playing it into wide areas to try and win corners and free kicks in wide areas. I thought that was a bit pot calling kettle black there from Eddie Howe, because they've certainly used those kind of tactics in the past as well.
Bit of the Spider-Man meme when it comes to Eddie Howe and Mikel Arteta, if you ask me.
I mean, they look very, very similar in terms of their stylistic setup, those two. I mean, obviously a few changes in midweek from Arsenal, and Newcastle probably a bit fortunate to win. A little bit. Not massively, but a little bit. But, after a whole bunch of wins, they've now had a draw and a loss. Arsenal, maybe a bit of momentum. I don't know whether this is wishful thinking or not. Maybe a bit of momentum has slipped away from them a little bit as we head into this game.
I think it has. They definitely haven't been as defensively solid. Like Newcastle routed them in attack. The question for me is how much was the Brighton and Newcastle result just a temporary slip or sign of real struggles in attack without Bukayo Saka? So. I think they're gettable. I think they're as gettable as they've been. We're in a really good moment post Liverpool. And again, we've had time to train. I think we saw the effect of actually having 2 sessions together against Liverpool. It's just time to understand the system and just time together. Whereas you play, and we're also heading into a run. I think Arsenal kicks off another run of 7 games in 21 days.
That's right. Yeah, it's Sunday, Thursday for the rest of the month, isn't it? Yeah, I think that training time's really important. Amorim has talked about it. He hasn't really complained about it. It's just is what it is. But what with injuries and people away in international breaks, he's not had an awful lot of full squad training time. I think he claimed 4 at one stage.
Yeah, I was going to say he's up to 6 now.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
Well, 6 as of this week. But, while the media storm's going on, how much is going on around the club at the minute. It feels like you can't keep up with everything happening. This time, they've actually got some time to train and just not even worry about that. And it feels really nice to have not a midweek game and get some preparation in.
Absolutely. And it's training on the system. And I think we saw obviously they prepared in a very specific way for Trent Alexander-Arnold, tactically overload that side of the pitch. Didn't even really need to have any flying wingers there to take advantage. It was Dalot and Bruno Fernandes. And there will not be those kind of space behind Arsenal fullbacks at all. So completely different setup required. They're going to have to think about especially how they play out of the back 3 or back 5, as it may well be for a fair part of this game, how they either bypass that through Onana, which they tried to do in the league game, successful for part of it. And and how they stopped giving him away. So, I mean, I think it was, am I right in saying it was 13 corners in the league game? It was some horrendous amount. Like, just don't do it. And also how they combat that, because I don't know whether you noticed, but Brighton put 3 men up, for all the Arsenal corners, trying to thin the box out and make it into sort of individual duels rather than systemic, which had some success, I guess.
Well, they just want to it's like bum rush. I don't even know what to describe it as. They just want to throw a heap of blokes at the near post and just get something that's coming over to the far post. It's so strange, but it works. I mean, you can't argue with something like that it works for them. Mm-hmm. I'm really curious to see what back three we go with, being that the playing out of the back has been an issue. Matthias obviously struggled in the last game. Is he going to almost a reprieve? And it's a Yoro, Maguire, Martinez back three. When does Lissandro Martinez get a rest, being that he's really the only left-sided centre-back available? Though we did see Lenny Yoro play left-sided centre-back in previous games. So I'm not too sure. I mean, you'd have to think it's Ugarte and Mainu in midfield again. They looked really good against Liverpool together. It was the first time we sort of saw that partnership blossoming a bit, and then Bruno Fernandes working quite well with them as well. So it's intriguing. I think it's weird to have amidst all this chaos and the league position to be like, it's an exciting opportunity to go to the Emirates and get a win. I think that's the way you have to look at it.
Developing team, I think inch by inch, Amorim has certainly said that the storm was coming and that he predicted some difficult results while this is happening. I wonder whether he might just regret making so many changes in those first few games. And maybe the payoff will be later in the season and he's managed all the minutes and fewer injuries, less fatigue and so on. And we'll see the real benefits, reap the benefits of that at the end of the season. But we didn't get any kind of new manager bounce because he's making 5-6 changes a game. He seems to have done that a little bit less. Something like a first 11 is emerging, I think, ish. Now, that also seems to include both Dalot and Mazraoui as wing-backs, full-backs. Maybe he's trying to sort the defence out first. Concede fewer goals. I know we've conceded, 2 against Liverpool, 2 against Newcastle, 2 against Wolves, 4 against Spurs. So it doesn't look exactly...
I think we're up to 19 now. Since Amorim took charge, it's
not awesome, is it? Although, if you look at the underlying data, the actual number of chances, that has dropped significantly. So, and you can pin a lot of the goals on individual
They're bad
errors.
Goals. I think if you look at the XG data and if you just watch back the goals, they're mistakes. It's the sort of discipline that he won't allow long term. And again, unfortunately, last weekend, De Ligt got turned for that goal. It was a poor clearance by Ugarte, and then Gakpo turned De Ligt. And then I think with the De Ligt one, with the penalty, we can all admit that if it was in the opposite, we would have been screaming for a penalty for Manchester United. But again, like you said to me during the week, the rules from IFAB specifically state. So it's a bit of a tricky one, but I think the defense will be fine. I'm more worried about the attack. I think the lack of consistency and cohesion is the worry, because I don't know who's your preferred front three right now. Besides, is Ahmad better suited to the ball carrying of the right wing back role, Bruno Fernandes in the 10, but then who's around that? Do you give Joshua Zirkzee a chance? And with Rasmus Højlund clearly just out of sorts and a young developing striker.
Yeah. At the back, I mean, I kind of tend to agree with you about one of Maguire and De Ligt. I think they're just too similar a profile, and they're both suited to the centre, not the right. I think we saw the consequence of Matthias De Ligt in the channel facing a tricky winger forward type thing, right? He ended up on his arse and the ball was in the top corner. So that's I think it's a good lesson. I mean, Amorim got a very good lesson the week before, and you don't play Casemiro and Eriksen together. We could have told him that one. I think we've seen that enough, but he won't do that ever again, I'm pretty sure. I would like to see Matthias De Ligt not play in that role and increasingly see Lenny Yoro. I know they're being super cautious with him. after the fitness issues. Presuming they're both fit and okay to play another game, Maino and Ugarte is clearly our first choice midfield now. And further forward, I mean, I don't like two fullbacks in those kind of wing back roles. Ideally, maybe again, this is one of those super tough games where you do that. Considering you'll be under pressure, although it's not the same kind of intensity as City away or Liverpool away, I think. So a good question there for whether he wants to be a bit braver, given that we have to have a winner as well. Like, there's no replays, right? So we're going to have a winner at some point. And then further forward, I generally, I mean, my eyes tell me I don't like Bruno Fernandes wide and left. I look at the numbers and he's just as effective, right? It's just, he is still creating chances. He's still pulling the strings. It's just he's in a slightly awkward position where he can only see sort of one half of the pitch.
I think we've seen that, sorry, repeating myself, but I think we're finding that he's still figuring out what exactly his role is in that. I can't remember which game it was. It might have been Newcastle or the game before. He looked at the touchline at one point when he was on the left because he didn't really know where he was supposed to be in the setup. And I think that's part of the training issue. So I think that fixes itself over time. It's just, I don't think you can play two wing backs in the current system, or two full backs in the wing back roles. I don't know if you call it the data, but we hadn't created a goal prior to the Liverpool game. We hadn't created a goal with two full backs playing in that role. I actually think Mazraoui, for all his positives this season, isn't a wing back in this system.
Not at all.
I think
he's just not physical enough.
Yeah, I think he's 100% in that right centre back role. I would be rotating him and Yoro there, and I would even be giving Lenny Yoro some exposure to the left centre back role, or maybe moving Maguire there. I mean, he played there for England. Mm-hmm. Really promising to have him sign the new deal. I think that's really good news. Just need some continuity, and like Amorim comments on the lack of leadership, and he almost challenged Maguire on that when he was talking about it in his press conference. So, there's plenty of questions, but I'm really curious to see what sort of lineup we go for. I think you do have to sacrifice some of that defensive solidarity, which obviously he's prioritized early doors. But I would like to see him sacrifice one of the fullbacks just for a little more attacking cohesion. Like, people have cried out even settling for Anthony in that right wing back role, but I would prefer to see Ahmad there and someone else alongside. Maybe you go with Garnacho alongside Bruno Fernandes. I know that Garnacho's been dropped from the starting lineup for the last 5 games, which I actually think is good with the amount of football he's played and the obvious discipline issue that's been reported. But I think you just have to, like, I know you talked about the experimenting when Amorim first took over. I think there's little tinkers that he can still make and look at just to find the right combinations, because we don't know what they are yet.
Yeah, agree. And it's how do you get the best out of our best players as well. And that was one of the things that Ten Hag so infrequently did. Like, he wasn't, I mean, obviously Marcus Rashford had one fantastic season, but Bruno's numbers dropped off quite a bit. So how do you get the best out of Bruno, and what's the right role for him? Ahmad, who's just signed a new deal, great news for the club, presuming he's on a reasonable wage, and he doesn't do a Wilderness Years United thing and just become shit now immediately, which is always a possibility. But yeah, how do we get the best out of him in this system? And what does it mean for the various centre backs and the centre back combinations, and who in midfield? And if it is Mainu and Ugarte is our best pairing, how do they get the balls forward? Because they're both great ball carriers, but neither's particularly brilliant progressive passer. And so he's trying to find out all those things, and what does the squad evolution look like? I mean, obviously that doesn't matter for this weekend. And if they magically do a deal today, which I don't think they're going to do, for a new player, then like, it's the next few months is about finding out who can really fit that system, and who needs to go. Talking of Amorim, well, he's such a nice guy, but I wish he would stir the pot a little bit. You know, part of the role, you see all the top managers, Pep, Klopp do this all the time. Part of the role of the manager is to try and set the tone in the press, and especially with the referees. And it's not like I'm saying he should put pressure on the referees, but this is one of the dirtiest sides in the league who do make a lot of tactical fouls and do it at set pieces. And if one of their centre-backs shoved one of our defenders out the way and they score from it, we'll all be regretting that he didn't on Friday go, oh, by the way, whoever the referee is, I'm not sure, hopefully not Michael Oliver, look out for this. And I do think that matters because Klopp was incredibly effective over the years of setting the narrative and putting pressure on referees. And I know he's too nice and he says he doesn't want to talk about referees, but I think we've missed that a little bit. And Ten Hag wouldn't do it either.
It's part of the game, I think, unfortunately. It is a part of the game you have to play. And something a sporting reporter said in an interview, I think it might have been on Talk of the Devils after he took over, was that Amorim doesn't criticize referees. It's not something he does. I wonder if that's something he'll evolve into understanding he has to do. Something you actually said before as well that I wanted to touch on was that Erik Ten Hag always exposed the weaknesses of his players and he didn't maximize their strengths. That was one of the problems with his system. He'd change things and he'd be flexible about things he would change, but there was things he was very inflexible about, and one of that was those things. And that's something we need to see out of Amorim, that he is maximizing what the players are good at. And so far, I think we're seeing glimpses of that, finding ways to maximize his best players. Hopefully, Kobe Minu can show a more expansive passing range, which he has done in patches this season. He did show in a youth team. And that is something he needs to unlock if his partnership alongside Manuel Ugarte is going to thrive. Well, yes, coming back to what you said, it would be refreshing. And I think United fans particularly respond to that us against the world mentality of we are getting mistreated by referees. We want something to be done about it. I remember when Jurgen Klopp criticised what was happening in United's favour, and we got so few decisions after that. It had such an effect with such public pressure on the FA that it felt like referees were thinking about those decisions in the moment. And
look at how many penalties we got before that Klopp rant and how many penalties we got after. It's like night and day.
Felt like we didn't get one for 12 months.
Yeah.
And it's
part of the game, I think.
Yeah.
Well, look, this is one of 3 competitions United are left in. It's an opportunity. I mean, it's obviously a very tough draw, so it wouldn't exactly be a shock if we went out of the competition. If we do, calendar looks a lot clearer. Could be extremely clear if we blow the next couple of Europa League games, although it seems unlikely from here. But I'm sure, like every United fan would like us to be at Wembley in May again, and in Bilbao in May, and pushing up the league and all of that. And it just creates a kind of negative narrative around the club where we're losing games. So it's pretty important from that point of view. We'll see how important Ruben Amorim thinks it is. I mean, obviously got a home game against Southampton coming up at the weekend. He has done a lot of rotation. I kind of suspect he'll look kind of similar to the Liverpool team, though. He does feel, this is a feeling more than real evidence, but does feel like he's inching towards a preferred 11.
I think so. And it was interesting to see his response to the Liverpool result as well, that he wasn't happy. It was certainly like the message that you can get up for big games, but the rest of the time you don't seem to.
Yeah.
I think so. I think he's really going to want a performance, obviously goes without saying, but he's going to want a response at Southampton, whatever happens in this game. And so it will be curious to see how he prioritises rotation this weekend with a week off and then only a few days before Southampton, which I believe is midweek. And so, yeah, I'm definitely curious to see how that pans out.
Yeah, Southampton on the Thursday, I think. Yeah, Arsenal Sunday, Southampton Thursday, and then whoever.
In the Europa League slot.
Yeah. Well, every single game for the rest of January is Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday.
Yeah, Monday morning, Friday morning here, so
joy.
Not exactly ideal, but...
All right, well, Adam, enjoy it. Listeners, viewers, wherever you are, thank you very much for coming along and enjoy the game.